How can you bring the outdoors into your indoor meeting? Hey, you've been to conferences, to retreats where you are stuck inside of a hotel conference ballroom and maybe you never even see the light of day. One of the most important things that we can do when we're designing and facilitating great meetings that bring transformation to our people is to learn how to introduce nature into our meetings. In this video, I'm going to talk with you about 3 reasons why you should consider bringing nature into your meetings, and I'm going to show you 5 ways on how you can bring nature into your meetings. This is going to lead to better outcomes for your participants. It's going to lead to much better outcomes for your hosts, and it's going to keep people coming back to your conferences and retreats year after year. Hey there, my name is Josh Freeberg, and I am a certified Xchange guide. And what that means is that we design conscious convenings and facilitate transformational experiences. Everything from a retreat to a meeting to a conference. We want to figure out how to get better outcomes for our participants, for the hosts, for our vendors even. And one of the most important ways we can do that is to actually introduce the outside to the inside, bring nature indoors. But you've probably been to, a conference where you flew into the airport, you got an Uber to the hotel, and maybe that was the last time you breathed fresh air or saw the sun for 3 whole days. I know I've had that experience, been in windowless conference rooms that were beige with, even the same chandelier as the last 3 events that I'd been at. How can we introduce that novelty and that organic feel of nature even if we're in built human environments? Well, why would we in the first place? I want to share with you a few reasons why introducing nature can be so valuable and so helpful when you're trying to design an event that will really bring transformation to your people, to the people who've come so far and have such high expectations of how they're going to be changed at your conference or your gathering. So one of the first things that we can do, or one of the first reasons we want to introduce nature into our meetings, is that it opens up creativity. It opens up the possibility when we see the wonderful variety and diversity in nature and possibilities in nature. It can open up creativity. One of our Xchange facilitators was actually working with engineers, if you can believe it, at BMW, right? The German motor car company. And they thought, man, we're going to try something crazy. We're going to introduce images of nature. And they put out these large pictures, beautiful pictures of all different kinds of outdoor things. And they thought they were taking a bit of a risk. What was fascinating as they shared this, as they moved into the next event, is the engineers lit up, they got all excited, and they said, hey, how did you know that this was part of our culture? And the facilitator was like, what do you mean? I didn't know this was part of your culture. And they said, oh yeah, we regularly bring in images of nature and ask ourselves as engineers, what can we learn from nature to help us solve this engineering problem? And this is such a wonderful thing that we can invite all different kinds of participants to consider what possibility nature might have for them as they consider their image of the future, as they consider the growth of their organization or even their own personal growth. So it opens up creativity. And second, it allows us to actually learn from nature. The other thing, though, that's so valuable about introducing nature into our events is, listen, every person, and I don't care how much of a head person they think they are, every person is a combination of, we use the metaphor of head and heart, right? Of mind and the center of emotion. That's just true, right? And often what we find is that emotion is the driver, the motivator that allows the head or the brain to actually take the action that it wants to. When we invite people to go into nature, we're also inviting them into their bodies, into physical or sensory practices. And when they do that, different part of their brain comes online that will allow them to be more creative and less in a place of safety or protection or fear, but instead in a place of possibilities and risk and going for it, right? This aligns their head and their heart, that great metaphor that we use to describe these different ways that we operate in the world. And introducing nature invites the possibility for heart to take a little bit more of a energizing, driving role within our meetings. Well, how are we going to do this? How do we introduce nature into our meetings, particularly if we are in an indoor environment? Maybe there isn't even the possibility of physically going outdoors. I mean, heck, if you're in, Denver in January, maybe you don't want to actually go outside and it's going to be a real indoorsy event. That's okay. How can we introduce nature? Well, one of the simplest and first ways that you can do this is choose a room with windows. Select a room with windows. Listen, I know often you're choosing a meeting because of flights, because of proximity to where people are at, because this is an airport where it's cheapest to get to, right? It's often going to be those like hub cities of Dallas or Phoenix or Orlando or one of those things. And of course, there's whole industries built around creating events in those cities. Because of that, we go to the city, we look up the hotel we're most familiar with, right? Whether it be a Hyatt or Hilton or whatever. And we book it because that's where our points are, and whatever room they have, whatever box they have to put us in, well, that's what we select. But I would encourage you, take a little time, get creative, look at local, look at Airbnb facilities, look at local universities, look at other creative venues that have beautiful places. Look at country clubs and yacht clubs. These often have incredible venues and meeting rooms. I actually was at an event once that was at a martial arts studio that was this beautiful meeting room they had built on with windows on 3 sides looking outdoors and then windows on the 4th side looking into their training facility. Beautiful, beautiful room. Who would have thought? Take a little extra time and consider what room you could be in that already is taking advantage of the nature around it. Second, bring plants into the room, right? Just the simple act of bringing green plants, potted plants, ferns, cut plants in glasses, in water glasses. Bring plants into the room, right? And I'm not talking floral bouquets. It doesn't have to be anything that fancy, right? But simply going and, buying a plant and then taking cuttings off of it, putting it into small jars that are on, tables at key points of entry or at snack tables. All of these things introduce life and light and vitality into the room that you just don't get with a sterile beige box, typically in a conference room. Next thing you can do is have sessions outdoors, right? Even if it's as simple as putting people into groups of, 4 or 5 that are going to be doing peer-to-peer coaching, and then invite them to explore the entire space around wherever the conference is happening, around the conference facility. Go find a place in a lobby that's filled with light. Go outside if possible. If it's cold outside, go find a place where there is a patio heater and see if that makes sense for your group. Let's get outdoors. Here's a 4th way to introduce nature into your event is images. Just pictures of nature, pictures of the outdoors. By the way, this gives you a cool opportunity to introduce things about sort of the whole cosmos, if you will, that you can't necessarily do in a one-to-one experience, right? What if you have, pictures from microscopes? What if you have images from telescopes that are in the room? What if you have nighttime photography photos that are put out? What if you have photography of beautiful animals or unique places in nature from all over the globe, or heck, even from within the universe?
That's Reggie, the sexiest dog in the world. Yeah. Isn't he? I'm not.
Well, all right.
These are all possibilities when you introduce images. I've seen this done well a couple different ways. I've seen it done as a scroll on a screen. You know, you've seen this before, how much a screen can captivate people's attention during an event. This is why we always want to be thoughtful about turning slides off if we notice everybody's attention's on them. But boy, nature slides are a really interesting one, where if they're changing every, say, 10 or 12 seconds, it's enough to catch people's attention, but it's not something that, you know, suddenly like text that their brain has to go to a different place to read, but it's enough of a pattern interrupt that people are able to look at that over with their eyes, look over with their eyes, and then get back to the speaker or presenter. Another great way to introduce images from nature is having pictures around the room. Maybe you want to have strategic pictures of people from within your community outdoors doing something, right? Maybe you want to have pictures of the outdoors that somehow represent themes or important things for the conference. Or one of the things we love doing is praise cards. These are actual cards that we would invite our participants to write notes to one another of appreciation, of praise, things that uplift and fulfill one another. What if these pictures have those images of nature on them as well? The last way to really introduce nature at a high level is to consider putting in like embodied or sensory experiences. This is particularly important if you're about to move into an exercise where people are going to be really heady, right? Where they're really going to be kind of in their brains for a long time. Maybe they're doing something that's really, taxing from a cognitive sense. One of the things that you can do is help move them into their body for a while. Help move them into the energy of their physicality. One, it's just the physiology of this, of getting blood pumping into the brain, is really helpful, but also it makes sure that we're not just trapped in our brains too much, and can get them into their sensory experience, their whole sense experience. And so things like music, dancing, right? I've been in part of events where people are doing different kind of like percussion exercises together, whether it's drum circles or boom whackers or something like that. But doing physical experiences, one of our favorites is the world's fastest rock, paper, scissors tournament, right? This allows people to be more physical and embodied. Another great one is to consider doing like breath work or do guided meditations. These allow people to feel and sense their bodies, which our bodies are part of nature. When we introduce nature into our indoor meetings, right? We become more than just sort of brains moving around, moving from meeting room to meeting room. Boy, this could have been a Zoom call, right? No, instead, we actually invite them into an experience that they only could have had in person, enfleshed, embodied, because we've introduced nature, introduced ourselves as part of nature into the meeting. Well, hey, if you've stuck with me for this long, I so appreciate it. And I know this, at first, and listen, I'm one of the most skeptical people on this ever, but I've become so persuaded. This might seem a little bit like, hey, Josh, this is all kind of airy-fairy, this is all kind of kumbaya. Yeah, it is, because you know why? That stuff works. There's something special that happens when we introduce nature, when we invite people into an embodied experience, that they're actually open for transformation. If we continue to push them into rationality only experiences, if we continue to push them into cognitive only experiences, this idea that somehow knowledge is the only answer, no. Knowledge not done, knowledge with no action is just entertainment. These practices of introducing nature, introducing embodiedness into our meetings allow people to get to great transformation. Hey, take a second with me, if you will. Go down into that chat and tell me what is a way that you are planning to introduce nature into your next gathering or event.